Hey guys, starting out with the HQ section of Astra Militarum, going to be the first part of the codex review. So let's go ahead and hop right in.
I refuse to call it Astra Militarum.
You piece of shit.
It'll
Yeah, it
it'll
is the Imperial
even
Guard.
even in my notes it says Imperial Guard, so
Yeah, it's the
that's the way it
Guard,
has to be.
let's be honest. So first up, it has the same kind of chapter tactics thing as far as regiments go. Uh,
That's true.
So you can choose between all the iconic factions, Vestroyans, the Ice Warriors, Taloran, all that kind of thing. Um, the only thing that you can't replace is Militarum Tempestus, and that's for obvious reasons. They're stormtroopers, they're not belonging to any regiment.
They're new stormtroopers because they got rid of Carsicans.
Yeah, which is a shame.
Yeah.
But these can deep strike. Woo.
I mean that's pretty handy, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah,
Guardsmen that can deep strike without having to like bring a Valkyrie. Pretty
yeah.
handy.
And they have hotshot las guns, so give me more of
Yeah.
them. Um,
They're not conscripts, so it's like I actually feel good about this troop choice.
yeah. They're not nerfed to hell either, like
Oh no.
conscripts.
Sad but
Um,
true.
so overall, things that the Astra Militarum gets is voice of command. So many of their HQ choices have this ability. They can issue
Even
orders.
some elite choices have it.
Yeah,
Like
the
the platoon
platoon.
commander.
Yeah. Uh, so they can issue orders to infantry within 6 inches of them. And let's go ahead and go over the orders real quick.
That'd probably be a
So
good idea.
first of all, take aim. Reroll ones for all models in the ordered unit until the end of the phase. Uh,
It's pretty great when you have plasma guns.
yeah, yeah, this is going to stop you from detonating
Killing
plasma
yourself.
on yourself. And plasma's huge this edition, especially on like
Plasma
veteran
guards
squads.
are. You probably should think about bringing plasma if you're not bringing a bunch of plasma.
Yeah, honestly.
So
Um, Also, like on las cannon heavy weapon teams, you actually are going to want to hit with your weapon. Pro tips.
that's very
Um,
true.
it's just an all-around good order. However, it's going to get overshadowed as we move down the list by
That's true.
first rank fire, second rank fire. Um,
Well, one thing to note with all these orders is that you use these orders through the voice of command ability, and you can only use the voice of command ability at the start of your shooting phase.
yeah,
So you've got that time in the movement phase to line up, get people within range to give orders to them, and
hmm
you got to remember that this is all during the shooting phase.
yeah. Some of them will take effect in other phases, like fixed bayonets, or um, there's another one that lets you attack twice.
Well,
Oh, no, it still works in the shooting
fixed
phase.
bayonets does take place in the shooting phase
Yeah,
because it gives you the extra attacks as if it was during the fight phase.
right. Okay. Um, so take aim is going to be used mainly on like heavy weapon squads. Anything that
Things you want
doesn't
to make
have,
sure they hit.
yeah, anything that doesn't have las guns or pistols.
Yeah,
Um, First rank fire, second rank fire is going to be used for those las guns and las pistols.
that's
All
true.
las guns and hotshot las guns in the ordered unit change their type to rapid fire 2 until the end of the phase. So, something that I noticed about this is it's not going to work on Overwatch, which is a shame.
That's a
But
shame, but the idea behind it is that if they're within 12 inches,
they're
which
not there.
if they're within 12 inches, let's say your regular infantryman or your infantry squad,
hmm
the infantry squad gets this put on them.
Right.
So if you're at 24 inches, which is the max range for a regular las gun,
hmm
you get two shots out of your gun
Yeah.
because it's now rapid fire 2 instead of rapid fire 1.
hmm
And where it really gets to be detrimental is within 12 inches because now that single guardsman is putting out 4 shots instead of 2 like he normally would without this order going on.
Yeah, and even though it's strength 3, you're putting out 40 shots an infantry squad. that's it's gonna kill something.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to like basic Marines. Um,
I mean, as always, las guns are great for
yeah,
taking out enemy troop choices. That's what they're really there for.
yeah,
And if those enemy said troop choices get close enough and you get this order off, which you should be able to, because
mhm,
usually just happens unless you're ordering the conscripts,
yeah,
that 10-man squad is now effectively firing like it was a 40-man squad, just because of the amount of shots that come out of each person.
yeah. And then, especially against toughness 3 units, which are becoming more and more prevalent, like Eldar,
Yeah,
Gaunts, shit like that,
a
you're
lot of
winning on 4s.
a lot of toughness 3 units are becoming more part of, I would say, almost akin to becoming part of the meta.
Yeah,
High toughness units are still harder to get rid of, but toughness 3 has just become so cheap and effective at what they do, which is killing enemy troops,
yeah.
that there's just more of them showing up in everybody's armies.
Well,
Um,
the other thing
Prime
is,
example is cultists for Chaos Space Marines. I
yeah,
see those like all the time now
you,
because they're dirt cheap and they're basically like guardsmen. So
yeah, you have to have a screen this edition, and if your enemy's foolhardy enough to move forward with that screen, or you move forward with these guardsmen, you can just
yes,
decimate them and then get your heavy hitting stuff in there. As far as melee goes, things like Bulgrins, different things like that.
Bulligren bodyguard and things like.
Yeah. Um, Also, just holding your line. If you have like 5 infantry squads as your screen and you're getting this order off to all of them in order to hold your front line, you're gonna hold your front line.
Yeah,
Um, Next up, bring it down. Reroll wound rolls of 1 on models ordered until the end of the phase. Um, I like this one, but I like take aim better.
take
Uh,
aim is just more general purpose better for you.
yeah,
Rerolling ones to wound is not bad, but it's just not as effective because sure you might like you shoot your plasma gun
hmm,
and you don't overcharge it and you hit let's say an enemy dreadnought, it's T7, right?
yeah,
Well, if you overcharged it and you shoot the enemy dreadnought, you're wounding it on threes because it adds an extra strength for overcharging and
yep,
you're going to be doing more damage. As long as you get the take aim on it, you've got a better chance of hitting, not killing your own man, and doing damage.
yep,
Whereas if you decide not to overcharge it for the fear of losing that model with the plasma gun,
hmm.
you're winning on fours, but you get to reroll ones.
Well,
It's just that matter of like as long as it hits, it's going to do something.
exactly. And guard doesn't have a problem wounding really. They have a
No,
problem hitting. Um,
that's their main issue.
Especially like heavy weapon teams where you can't take veteran heavy weapon teams. They're hitting on 4s. I want my
Yeah,
las cannons to hit. I'm pretty sure they're gonna wound with, 3 shots out of each team.
with being
Um,
strength 9, you want your las. The main problem with las cannons edition is that you want to be able to hit with them, and
yeah,
if you don't use take aim on them, they're just less chance of hitting,
yeah,
and less chance of hitting means less chance of wounding. So you just increase the amount of hits you have, you're going to increase the amount of wounds you get.
exactly. And it just comes down to math hammer at that. As far as you wanna use the ability that's gonna affect more dice, then use the ability that's gonna affect less. And there's gonna be more dice in your to wound pool than there is into your hit pool. Um, so I think that one's just honestly gonna get overshadowed by a lot of stuff. Um,
Uh, I've only ever used it once or twice, I think.
yeah, it's just not all that useful.
No.
Um, Forwards for the Emperor. Ordered unit can shoot in this phase even if it advanced in the movement phase. Um,
So this one's really
Actually pretty
good.
useful. Yeah.
This one you want to use on your infantry squads and things like that, like your
Hmm.
troops for getting to objectives and holding them.
Yep.
What's really good about this is you've got a possibility of moving 12 inches with a guardsman squad because you move 6 and you add the d6 for the advance.
Right.
On average, you're moving what? That's what
3.5 is the average dice roll, so
Yeah.
9.5 inches.
So give or take 9 inches movement on your guardsman squad.
Yeah,
All of a sudden, you're now able to get to that objective, and even once you get there, you're not without protection. You can still fire at whatever's around you,
yeah.
which
Um,
makes it incredibly useful. Because now you don't need another squad to follow them around to help them advance. They now can just advance by themselves.
Not only that, but if you're just pushing your enemy's front line, like if you're just trying to make a gap in it, and you
Hmm.
move forward with these guys, um,
All of a sudden, a bunch of guys are in your face.
yeah, exactly. And actually, I want to jump ahead just for a minute to talk about one of the relics real quick,
Oh
because
yeah,
I think it's super useful here. The Laurels of Command is the one that I have in mind.
that one. It's really where this order gets to become exceedingly good.
So, an officer with a voice command ability, roll a dice each time the bearer issues an order to a friendly regiment unit within 6 inches of them on a 4-up, can immediately issue another order to the same unit. It does not count towards the maximum number of orders this model may issue each turn. So, basically, what it means is, like, let's say you have this on a company commander. You issue an order, roll your 4-up, you get a 4 or better, and you get to put another order on them. So if you get this order off of forwards for the Emperor, and then you also get off like first rank fire, second rank fire, now you're in your enemy's face, and you're putting out a massive amount of shots and just annihilating their front line.
That's very true. Yeah, which is important to note because the reason Laurels of Command are a good relic for in general is because you can only ever have by base without this relic. You can only ever have a squad get one order per turn.
Yeah,
So normally you'd only ever give them like each squad their own order.
yeah.
So
And
with this, you're able to really double the efficiency and double the ability.
and you keep rolling 4-ups, right? uh,
Yes.
because you're issuing another order. So technically, you could get every order on this list off on one squad. You'd have to be really lucky, but
You have
you
to be
could
really
do it.
lucky. The stars have to, and also everything on the board.
Yeah.
So, but it's
But if you
possible.
do, and I've gotten like 4 orders off on
Yeah.
Tempestus before, when you get that to happen, their combat efficiency goes through the roof.
For being as cheap as guardsman squads and regular troop choices for guard are,
Mm.
uh, as soon as you add orders into the mix, they become incredibly efficient and incredibly point value. Like they make it up almost immediately.
Yeah. Uh, Even if they're just there to die as a screen, and
That
you make
screen
them
can move on average about 9 inches towards the enemy to
and then
keep that
fire 40
9 inch bubble
shots.
away.
Yeah.
That's it's just a level of deterrent that the enemy now has to walk, like just walk through. Even
Yeah.
if it's just like Chaos Terminators in melee with guardsmen,
Hmm.
those Chaos Terminators had to waste a turn charging a squad of guardsmen when they would rather be charging your Lehman Russ behind them.
Yeah. And they might not even kill them.
It's true.
If it's a 5-man Terminator unit, they'd have, what, they have 2 attacks apiece?
They've got, I believe so. I think it's two, and the sergeant has.
Yeah, so they'd have to roll almost perfectly just to kill a 10-man guardsman unit. So you're going to tie them up for 2 turns, probably, as long as you can keep your morale up, which there's plenty of ways to do in this codex. Um, Anyways, moving on to get back in the fight. Ordered unit can shoot this phase even if it fell back in the movement phase. This is
So
huge.
this is one that I've used multiple. I've used it against you a few
Yeah.
times actually,
Hmm.
and it's. I don't think I've ever had a moment where I thought to myself, I shouldn't have issued this order. I should have issued something else instead.
Yeah, it's just good. It lets guardsmen exceed at what they're good at. So you
Which is
have
screening.
yeah, you have a screen that can now, fall back and still be effective. And like
Yeah.
we were talking about before, if you have Laurels of Command, they're gonna be within 12 inches of you, so you fall back, and if you can get first rank fire, second rank fire off, and still shoot, you know, their day has just gotten pretty shit.
Yeah, not to mention, you might find in general with 2,000 point games or anything over 1,000 points, you
Mhm.
generally find yourself as a guardsman player bringing more than a few infantry models.
Yeah.
Like on average, I think I bring about like 70 infantry,
Mhm.
like 70 men total, so about 7 squads, give or take,
Yeah.
just for
I
filling
mean,
out different attachments.
uh,
And you, at almost all times, there's 3 of them all within firing range of supporting each other. So if somebody falls back, and I get that squad to get back in the fight with the
yeah.
order, and they're able to shoot, that's whatever's left of that squad that's been charged,
Mhm.
shooting into them at rapid fire range, and then 2 other squads that are just formed up around them to make a kill box essentially.
Yeah.
And even if they only have las guns and I don't have laurels of command, just the fact there's on average around like 25 guardsmen
Yeah.
just shooting one singular squad, even if it's just with their regular unbuffed las guns, no orders besides get back in the fight.
It's 50 shots down range.
Exactly. It's enough, even though they're guardsmen, it's enough to put down models and put your enemy's unit, whatever they charged into you, into some predicament.
Well, the other thing too is we both come from 7th edition, so going to 8th, last gun got way more powerful. It can hurt land raiders. You know, that was the joke for a while of last guns versus land raiders. But honestly, if your opponent, you know, slugs a vehicle up the field or some kind of monster up the field
If
and it's on low
if
wounds, you
yeah,
can put
if
it
if
down with the
somebody
last
brings
gun.
what's left of their party van up
Yeah,
the field because their land raider only has like 5 wounds left, sure it might be toughness 8 with a 2 up armor save,
yeah,
but 50 shots going into it, it's just like shooting Terminators. They're bound to fail a few.
yeah. And even if you don't outright kill it, you can get it down to like that 2 or 3 wound threshold and slam it with a D3 damage weapon like a power fist
Yeah,
and really ruin your
or
enemy's
even
day.
just overcharge a plasma gun into it, or
Yeah,
just something else that's, maybe autocannons are a prime example of this because they do 2 damage.
yeah,
They're strength 7, AP -1 with 2 damage, and shooting an autocannon into vehicles that are really low wounds.
hmm,
Speaking from experience on both ends of getting shot with autocannons and shooting autocannons into vehicles, it's an issue when your land raider only has 2 wounds left, and the opponent's like, well, my three squad of heavy weapon autocannons, all 3 autocannons are shooting your land raider.
hmm.
I don't want them to hit any because there's a significant chance I'm about to lose a land raider to an autocannon.
Not only that, but autocannons actually got cheaper with chapter approved. I think they're 12 points a model now.
They're they're a bit cheaper, yeah.
And strength 7 is perfect because now you're wounding like lighter tanks, basically anything that's not a Lehman Russ, a Baneblade, or a Knight. You're wounding it on 4s. Um,
Yeah.
and then AP
It's also,
-1 is putting him
I
at
mean,
3 ups.
the general idea originally with it is, you use it for killing heavy infantry,
Hmm.
but if you shoot an autocannon in the light infantry, that light infantry's gone.
Oh yeah, if you have nothing better to shoot at and you shoot it into Gaunts or Space Marines or whatever, they're not there
If
anymore.
it's anything that's not T7 is getting wounded on 3s and -1 of their armor.
Yeah.
And if they are multi-wound models like Primaris,
Hmm.
all of a sudden that Primaris Marine has a 4 up armor, and if he fails an armor save, that's a dead Primaris Marine.
Yeah, and also Terminators, you're bringing them to that 3 up, and they're not likely to fail it, but if they do, that's, you've made back your points.
You've instantly made back points if you kill a Terminator.
Yeah.
If one autocannon kills a single Terminator out of an enemy Terminator squad, that autocannon's on usually, even if it's on a weapons team, that
Hmm.
autocannon's made up its point values.
Yeah, I mean, for 12 points a model and then 8 points for the men on it,
Mm-hmm.
that's nothing.
No.
Um, so let's go ahead and move on to the next order. Move, move, move. Instead of shooting this phase, ordered unit immediately moves as if it were the movement phase. It must advance as a part of this move, cannot declare a charge during this turn.
So this is a
That's
really good
big.
one. This is among orders like Forwards for the Emperor and Get Back in the Fight.
Mhm.
All three of these are all about giving your guardsmen squads mobility.
Yep.
And mobility is going to really, really help your guardsmen out because even though guardsmen are not bad in melee, they're not great at it. They're not
Well,
particularly made for it.
Space Marines, the common tactical Marine, will beat them in melee.
Yeah, there's plenty of times where you're going to be fighting an enemy army as guard. You look at it, and you look at their just whatever's in front, like their screen units, like gaunts or whatever it is.
Mhm.
You don't want to be in melee with them. You'd much rather be rapid firing.
Yep.
Uh, Even though this one doesn't let you do anything, you can't charge. But the point is, by default,
Mhm.
with move, your regular move distance is going to be 6 inches.
Yep.
You can advance with your original move,
Yep.
and then do that again. You've got an 18-inch on average move for a squad of men. You can quite easily run up a squad or two of guardsmen onto an objective, and with two squads there, like somewhere in midfield on turn one, if you get two squads of guardsmen near an objective, granted they can't charge and they might not be able to shoot.
Mhm.
The point is, though, you now have 20 bodies on this objective before your opponent even gets there.
Yeah.
So you've got time to support them and move heavier guns up or heavier infantry.
And with a average movement of 19 inches with this order going off, turn one, you deploy 24 inches up the board
Or
to your front
12.
line. Yeah, whichever way you're playing. And then you add 19-inch movement to that. You're going to be able to sit on objectives, and with the chapter approved dropping and the OPSEC rules for troops, you're going to be the one holding the objective if you
Yeah,
have 20
because
guardsmen on it.
all of a sudden there's now 20 models on it.
Yeah.
One other thing I've seen this get used for pretty effectively, might I add, is I've seen this get used on bare bones infantry squads, which
Hmm.
those are usually the ones I run anyway. I like
Yep.
to keep them cheap so I can bring big toys.
Yep.
Uh, Bringing on a bare bones infantry squads, if you have 3 squads and they
Hmm.
all get move, I'll move 18 inches. If you just conga line them, able
Hmm.
like of your deployment zone, and you do this, you've just brought a screen all the way to your enemy's deployment that they're either going to have to shoot away, charge away, or no matter what, they're wasting a turn of shooting or melee. Just
Hmm.
getting through dirt cheap units that are your troop choices.
Yeah. And this is going to let you have a
It,
pretty
it
great amount of board control.
it's yes, this one's all about board control, and it does it really well. Honestly, it's incredibly handy.
Also, if you're playing the older mission set, like the Relic or something,
Yeah,
and your boys have the Relic or they have a movable objective,
yeah.
this is
All of a
huge.
sudden, that objective's gone. It's
Yeah,
18 inches away.
19 is actually the average roll for it.
It's true. So
Um, yeah, I mean it's just great.
one thing it's also really good for, that I've had great success with is I was playing a mission. I can't remember it for the life of me, but it's one where you're allowed to come in from the board edges
Hmm.
as long as it's not in the enemy deployment zone, right?
Right.
So I have a squad that walks back on from reserves,
Hmm.
and so because the way the reserves work, it comes in at the end of your movement phase.
Yeah.
So they deploy at the edge of the table during the movement phase, but I have a commander nearby, and I asked you move during the shooting phase. Now
Yep.
all of a sudden, my flank is more secure again. My left flank is now has 10 more guys forming another screen to keep my more valuable like commanders and artillery pieces safe.
Yeah.
Because in that specific mission I was talking about, I was playing against the Space Wolves player.
Yeah.
So his Thunderwolf cavalry was moving up on that side, and I ran out of boys to screen with.
Yeah.
So I was able to bring them back on, and I was able to move them into a position where, guess what? You've got to kill 10 more guardsmen.
Hmm.
And that doesn't sound like it's a terrible thing to do when you're fighting Thunderwolf cavalry, but it's the fact of you have to waste a turn killing 10 more guardsmen.
Yeah.
And during that time, I've got ability to plan out and keep my boys defended.
Not only that, but if you look at the average table setup, there's normally like pretty decent amount of cover, normally some like ruins or craters in the midfield. So if you are planning on getting out to the midfield anyways, there's not really anything else out there that you're going to be shooting at yourself. Using this just to get out there and get in cover is great.
What this is also really good for, having played against plenty of different Space Marine players at our local shop,
Yeah.
is doing this and running them up into the midfield. Uh,
Mhm.
it prevents a lot of deep striking because
Yeah.
if you're running Imperial Guard, unless you're running like armored column or things like that,
Mhm.
they usually can't deep strike in your deployment zone. And if you run a bunch of squads up in the mid zone, they no longer can deep strike there. They've got to wait to clear something out, or they're going to end up deep striking within their own units
Yeah.
just to be outside of that 9-inch bubble.
Yeah. And
And it's really good for board denial with that.
this is also keeping them from deep striking onto objectives in the midfield as well.
Yeah,
Um, Alright, so let's move on to fixed bayonets.
it's
This
good.
order can only be used to units that are within 1 inches of an enemy unit. Ordered unit immediately fights as if it were the fight phase.
What this is good for is if you last turn you got a squad into melee or somebody's charged a squad
Mhm.
and neither of them are dead and neither of them ran away from.
Yep.
It now gives your guardsmen an edge in the coming fight phase because they get a free fight phase right now, and the enemy can't swing back because it's not the fight phase. They just get to swing as if it was.
Yep.
So they get all of their free swings with whatever they're equipped with. Most of the times, if we're talking about infantry squads that are screening, it's just going to be, of course, their bayonets.
And then the chainsword on the sergeant, possibly.
Yeah, but having that ability
Yeah.
to do this during the shooting phase without any retaliation is incredibly handy.
Well,
And given that it's your turn, when you start the fight phase, you can opt for that squad to go again, so they get to attack and hopefully wipe out whatever they're in melee with in one turn before they can retaliate.
not only that, but what I've seen happen with this quite a few times is they'll charge dirt cheap infantry into the guardsman line. And
Yeah,
let's say 2 of their infantry survive. I'm able
yeah,
to fix bayonets, fight them, kill them, and then it doesn't say anything about me not being able to shoot in my shooting phase, because orders happen at the top of the shooting phase.
yes. These
So,
all will take effect as soon as the shooting phase starts when you issue orders.
yeah.
Uh,
So I'm
so you're
able
still able to
to
shoot
fight.
this squad.
Yeah. Well, not maybe not shoot the squad that you're in combat with, but if you're able to kill off the squad that you're in combat with in the
Yeah,
shooting phase, you can then shoot with the guardsman squad that was previously in combat.
yes, which is really handy because uh, turn one charges are very much a thing that
Yeah.
you, as Imperial Guard, are going to end up having to do most of the time.
Especially if you just have like um, some dumb shit run into your lines, like Eldar Guardians,
Like
some
Nurglings that get to
Nurglings.
deploy nine
Yeah.
inches away from you.
Yeah. Yeah, I've faced that a few times.
Yeah, it's pretty great because Nurglings are incredibly cheap. They're 54 points for a squad of three. They
Yeah.
get to deploy 9 inches from you, and
Three
if your
wounds
enemy gets
apiece.
first turn, they're making their charge,
Hmm.
unless they
Yeah,
roll Snake Eyes. But let's be honest, as the command points are for.
exactly. Um,
So
Moving
being able
on.
to chop down crappy infantry that are stopping you or cluttering up your lines or your
Hmm.
screen, it's incredibly useful, and that's exactly what it's made for, and it does its job really well.
Well, the other thing too is if you, for some reason, gave a sergeant like a power sword or something, getting more swings in with that special weapon, that's big.
Yes.
That's making your points back.
Yeah, I mean it's 4 points for a power sword.
Yeah. I mean, there's
Yes.
not really reasons,
If
like,
you've
if you
got a
just have
squad
them
that's
laying
still in
around.
melee and you can use this,
Yeah.
there's a lot of times where you just might as well
Uh,
because
I've actually been looking into putting power swords on at least a few of my sergeants because it normally just surprises my enemy that something like that even is in the squad. You know, they're
yeah,
so used to
there's
basic guardsmen.
uh, if you speak to anybody who has a power armor army, whether it
Hmm.
be Chaos or regular Marines, if they charge a guardsman squad, and that guardsman squad with the sergeant, of course, survives, and
Yeah.
you inform them, well, this model has a power sword in it. It's essentially removing their armor because they have to make 6-ups now.
Yeah.
So they might be killing a bunch of guardsmen because they're tactical Marines, but your sergeant's on average cutting down like one or two tactical Marines with his sword,
Yeah.
and that's pretty detrimental.
Yeah. And then that's on top of the 9 other guardsmen attacks,
Yeah,
which will probably cap one of them.
yeah.
Uh,
Assuming you've got the other nine alive.
yeah, exactly. Um, Other things here that we should talk about is grinding advance. Uh,
Yeah,
if you move under half of your movement, or half of your movement exactly, with a
for a
Leman
Lehman
Russ,
Russ.
your turret weapon is allowed to fire twice at the same target.
Uh, Having used this rule a few different times whenever I play my guard armies, I've been
Hmm.
able to make a use of this pretty effectively. I still like battle cannons, even though
Hmm.
they don't cookie cutter enemies anymore.
Yep.
Uh, Running catechins with grinding advanced Leman Russ battle cannons
Hmm.
is devastating because it essentially turns whatever your turret gun, whatever your turret mounted weapon is, you just essentially double the shots at whatever
Yeah.
you're shooting at. And that's really handy when you take a D6 heavy weapon into a 2D6 heavy weapon.
Yeah.
You're averaging around 7 shots. And granted, it might, if it even if it's like a normal, not a commander,
Hmm.
it's hitting on fours. Yeah, sure, it's hitting on fours, but you now have double the shots to contend with.
Well, it's the same philosophy as first rank fire, second rank fire. More
Yeah,
shots equals more hits.
more
And
shots are just better.
yeah, you're
One thing that this,
removing the instability of dice from the equation.
yes. One thing that this really is handy for is even when you're not using uh, random shot weapons like battle cannons or nova cannons, plasma cannons, or anything like that,
Hmm.
is the Punisher Gatling cannon
Yeah.
is a turret-mounted weapon for the Lehman Russ.
Say hello to heavy 40,
It goes from 20 shots to 40 shots, and even if you're a regular Lehman Russ, you're hitting on four, give or
averaging
take
20 hits. Yeah.
give or take 20 shots that are hitting. You can grind away infantry squads with it.
Yeah.
You just I've managed to get that. I don't use Punishers as often anymore
Yeah.
in Eighth Edition, but I did use them when I was playing our Nid friend,
Hmm.
and he runs Gaunt squads of 30. All of a sudden, 20 of those Gaunts are just dead. They're just gone.
Yeah. Just
Uh,
being able
and
to remove those blobs is huge.
it's incredible when you're able to get rid of your enemy screen.
Especially when. So, also, some of the screening units can be turned very offensive. Like, I've seen Gaunt squads tie up Gilliman for the whole game.
Yeah,
Um, because they just
just
have mom effects behind him, just continuing to spawn more and more gaunts
yeah,
on it.
and they're within the synapse range, so they
Yeah,
never break morale. So it's pretty incredible stuff you can do with some of these crappy little units.
yeah. And if you're able to kill them before they're able to actually, do anything,
Hmm.
that's big.
That's
Um,
really handy. This is
Also,
also pretty handy because this affects every Lehman Russ.
yep.
Um, Without getting too deep into Forge World,
Hmm.
it will affect the Forge World models as well
Yep.
because they've stated that. But in general, with just the regular GW products, um, the Vanquisher Battle Cannon,
Oh
which is
yeah.
the anti-tank variant where it's normally just a heavy one shot.
Hmm.
Uh, if you move like you're under half for grinding advance, you all of a sudden are getting 2 shots.
Yeah. You've
Uh,
literally just doubled your chances to hit. And
well,
if you're a
you almost
basic
guaranteed
Russ,
a shot because you're about 50-50 with a ballistic skill of 4.
yeah.
So all of a sudden you've got a now a significantly more reliable anti-tank gun mounted on your Lehman Russ.
Well, before this came out,
Before this
Vanquishers
came
were
out, I would never
unusable.
bring the Vanquish. No, it
No,
would be terrible.
you hit your only shot half the time, and then
Yeah,
it doesn't even do all
and it's
that
not
much
a cheap
damage.
gun either.
No. Yeah, I mean the Vanquisher still isn't like something that you're going to be bringing to the Las Vegas Open or anything. Um,
No.
but it makes it usable.
It does.
Also, the tanks really just needed this.
Yeah.
You have a 12-inch movement, so you're still able to move 6 inches. Um, I don't see a reason that you're going to need to be zipping around the board, to be honest.
No. From what I've seen from playing different games of 8th edition with my Lehman Russes, in general, 8th edition games, turn 3 or 4, you're going to know where exactly turn are probably going to be ending soon, just
Yeah.
because of how bloody 8th edition is.
Oh,
If you boil that down, your Lehman Russ doesn't have to move that far
mhm.
unless you're running a Lehman Russ army, in which case you can afford to move like 3 Lehman Russes at their full speed and not get grinding advance because you've got like 6 more that are moving only like half their speed for
Yeah.
grinding advance.
Well, also, in regimental doctrine, if we just want to pop over to that for a second, the
Sure.
Cadian regimental doctrine works really well with this, and the Catechin one does as well. The
Yes.
Cadian, because if you just don't move, you're re-rolling ones to hit,
Yeah.
um, which that's good, especially on Lehman Russ weapons, especially like battle cannons, demolisher cannons, where it's
Yeah.
multi-damage weapons. You want as many hits as you can, and if you're not moving at all, grinding advance, of course, kicks in. And
Yeah.
then if you want to talk about catechins, which is the ones that you normally use,
For battle cannons or any uh, random shot weapons.
yeah,
The Catechin one is really good. It's good for your entire army, so you can really mix an infantry blobs with your battle cannon, Lehman Russes, or whatever, or Hellhounds, or anything like that. Because what the Catechins let you do is it lets you re-roll one of your dice for when you're shooting random allocation.
mhm,
So here's the thing with grinding advance on your Lehman Russ battle tank, it's 2 separate shots. So you get to what you do is you get to re-roll those shots for free essentially, because it shoots a single d6 to determine how many shots, and with catechins you get to re-roll up to one of those dice determining how many shots.
per
There's
shot.
only the one dice,
Yeah,
so you roll. Let's say, as an example, I my first shot from grinding advance battle tank, that's catechin. I roll to see how many shots come out. I roll a 2. Well, I'm just going to re-roll it because I'm allowed to, and it's free.
yep.
So go back to like 3 or 4. Pretty good. Goes through all that. And then the second shot that comes out the barrel, I roll a 1. Well, I get to re-roll that too because it's not the same shot.
Yeah, you're firing twice, you're not doubling your amount of shots.
Yeah.
Which,
You're essentially doubling it, but it
yeah,
is specified that it's not just doubling the profile, you do shoot twice.
which is good. Uh,
What's really good is tank orders, which you are able to use from tank commanders.
hmm
They're good. I mean, the main reason I bring tank commanders is the fact that they're ballistic skill 3,
Do you
rather
want
than
to
their
run
tank
through
order.
the tank orders real quick?
Yeah, tank orders. They're pretty much the similar as last edition. Uh, Full throttle. It's pretty good. It's not as handy if you're running your Lehman Russes as pure fire support.
Yeah.
So with full throttle, instead of shooting this phase, the ordered model immediately moves into its movement phase, and it must advance as part of this move, and it cannot declare charge. It's a lot like move for infantry squads.
hmm
But now it's a Lehman Russ, and Lehman Russes move 10 inches by default.
So something I've used or seen this used for is a Russ is out in the midfield, just gets absolutely nuked, but
Yeah.
still has like 5 or 6 wounds left. You can use this to get back to a Tech Priest Engine Seer to get repaired
Yes,
up.
that's really what this full throttle ability is for. Um, sure, you can use it to get a Lehman Russ onto an objective.
Yep.
It's usually not what you want to do unless
Turn
you're running a
7.
Lehman Russ army.
Yeah.
But what it really gets good for is moving it around the table. It's all about
And we're back.
yeah.
So, as we were saying, it's just all about board control and having the flexibility of moving around it.
One thing I've seen full throttle get used for, and I admit I've used this before with the Lehman Russ, is Lehman Russes are not small.
No.
They're pretty bulky. It's a lot like putting a brick on the table,
Yep.
actually, but it's got treads on it.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, what this is really great for is if somebody's moved their infantry or like a dedicated melee squad, like Corn Berserkers,
Mm-hmm.
up within charging range of your infantry or something like that,
Yep.
in like a veteran squad that has plasma guns or something like that. Something
Mm-hmm.
valuable you want to protect, and you've got a broken or not even broken Leman Russ, but you don't need it over on this flank because you're absolutely decimating this flank with like a Shadow Sword or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
You're able to move it. You can get that thing. Like if it's an unwounded Lumen Russ, it moves 20 inches with this
Yeah.
base. Before you'd be moving about
Advances.
23
Uh,
if you have to advance.
27 on average because it's 2 advances.
That's right. So with that 27-inch move, I've been able to move a Leman Russ away from the front line, all the way back near my deployment zone on the other side of the table,
Mm.
and I've been able to get it completely in between an infantry squad and an enemy Corn Berserker squad, because my infantry were on the side of the table, and there was a building that they were next to, and it was like a little alleyway essentially.
Yeah.
And I was able to park my Leman Russ right in between them at the edge of the entrance of the alleyway.
Mm.
So, because they'd failed to charge, so they
Yeah.
were really close. And I just was able to move it right over there, completely block them off, and box them in, so my infantry squad could move away, and I could angle around some heavier firepower to knock down these Corn Berserkers.
One thing that I've used this for is because the Lehman Russ is just such a brick. I play AdMech mainly with Guard
Mm-hmm.
Ally. Um, I had a Tech Priest Dominus on one wound, so I just take a Lehman Russ, move it over to him, and block line of sights to the snipers that were firing at him.
Yes,
And now they just
it's
flat
extremely handy
out
for
can't
that.
shoot at him.
It's a really good thing for sniper denial because you can find oftentimes like I've had to do this with my Kamazar as well. Is my Kamazar is getting shot by an enemy sniper because I was playing against Eldar.
Hmm.
So what I did is I just advanced him up behind the Lehman Russ, and even though the enemy snipers were on the third story of a ruins, they just couldn't draw line of sight because of
Yeah.
the size of Lehman Russ.
Well, I think that's something that is overshadowed a lot in a lot of reviews. People take a look at the stats, but they don't actually think about what the model itself looks like. And of course, we're not encouraging like modeling for advantage or anything.
No.
Um, your whole army isn't laying down on their bases, but just some naturally large models that are dense
Yeah.
like this one. You can use them to hide behind. Same thing with rhinos. Same thing with chimeras.
Some people give Lehman Russ and Imperium designs in general, because almost all Imperium designs are just it's a box with treads
Yep.
at varying slopes and sizes.
Hmm.
People will give it a lot of flack. When it comes to game standards, though,
Oh
they
my
can
god,
be
it's
extremely
wonderful.
handy.
Yeah, and
I
it's
have a
also
Shadow
clear.
Sword. I've had a Shadow Sword in front of two Lehman Russes,
Hmm.
and so a Lehman Russ was on each side behind where its fuel canisters are on my Shadow Sword,
Right.
and it was an enemy's like long fangs, which are essentially like Space Wolf's Devastator squads. And they
Yeah.
all had las cannons. They couldn't see the Lehman Russes anymore from behind the Shadow Sword.
Yeah.
But my Lehman Russes were able to shoot enemies that were not directly in front of them because the Shadow Sword was there, but they were able to shoot off things to the side. The enemy had to work on slowly attempting to chew through a Shadow Sword.
Well, the other thing you got to think about this edition too is you're not measuring from the end of the barrel anymore. You're measuring from wherever on the model you want. So if you're just the tip of your heavy bolter sponson is sticking around the corner, you can fire
Yes.
all of your guns from that. I mean,
Even
it's
though it's just
cheesy
your
as hell.
sponson or even if your exhaust port is hanging around a corner, your
Yeah.
battle cannon can draw line of sight.
Yeah, and it's usually you want to have a little bit of your hull around a corner, so it's very clear opponent to opponent.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, if you can literally have a sponson sticking around your corner and fire a demolisher cannon into someone, and you're obscured
Mhm.
50%, so you're getting cover. Um,
Speaking of firing demolisher cannons and things like that,
Yeah.
uh, the next order for tank orders, which is I would say probably my favorite one,
Yep.
is gunners kill on sight. Um, it's pretty straightforward. You re-roll hit rolls of one for the ordered Lehman Russ until the end of the phase.
Yeah. And
Um,
that's huge for things that are hitting on a 4 up, and even better
it
for things
is.
that are hitting on a 3.
So it's incredibly good because you're able to because there's some Lehman Russes where you can outfit them with like two plasma cannons,
Mm.
a las cannon in the hull, and then well, what is it called?
The
The executioner
exterminator? Oh, yeah.
plasma cannon. You can now supercharge it without fear of completely neutering your Russ for the rest of the game.
Yeah. And especially if you're having a commander issue orders to himself, which is hilarious in and of itself, but
Yeah,
you now have a Lehman Russ that hits on a 3 up, re-rolling 1s to hit, with a strength 8, AP minus 3, 2 damage weapon without fear of suffering mortal wounds, or at least not too many.
yeah.
And
Uh,
then keep in mind that thing also gets affected by grinding advance, so probably going to be 2d6 shots out of that gun.
Yeah. For armies I've seen where they have multiple eradicators,
Hmm.
which is a very viable strategy, by the way.
Yeah.
You have like a Liminra squadron of three eradicators, and you've got a commander with an eradicator tank,
Mm.
and the commander issues gunner's kill on sight to himself while the rest of the guys shoot, and he overcharges. So he overcharges and he hits on threes, rerolling ones. So
Hmm.
he's super safe, and the rest of the guys don't overcharge. They just bombard with plasma.
Yeah, the executioner you're talking about, right?
Yes, the
Okay,
execution.
yep. Um, we'll get more into the actual hardcore weapon options in a little bit, but
Yeah,
just to round out the last order, Strike and Shroud. This order can be issued to a model that has not yet used its smoke launchers during the battle. It can fire its weapons and still use smoke launchers. Um, it's just good.
to clarify what smoke launchers are, they're on almost every single Imperium vehicle.
Yeah.
The rule is that once per game, instead of shooting any weapons in the shooting phase, the model can use its smoke launchers until your next shooting phase. Your opponent must subtract one from all hit rolls from ranged weapon attacks that target this vehicle. So with Strike and Shroud, even though smoke launchers are only once per game, Strike and Shroud, your Lehman Russes might be like pushed too far up or might be overexposed, and you want to make sure that they're not going to get outright murdered. You use Strike and Shroud on them, and all of a sudden this Lehman Russ is way harder to hit.
Well, not only that, but even if you have them in your backfield, but your opponent has a very AT heavy list, you're
Yeah,
able to still output your damage. Um, but then, let's say you're not going to kill every bit of AT in their army. There's still a couple Devastator squads, maybe a tank
yeah,
sitting around. Uh, you're able to minimize the retaliation,
yeah.
which this is a great turn one order.
It
Prevents you
really
from just
is.
getting alpha striked.
Uh, it's really great in general whenever you have an ability that lets you give your opponent -1 to all hit rolls targeting anything you own.
Yeah,
It's pretty good whenever you like are fighting a Marine army because all of their stuff hits on threes,
yeah,
and all of a sudden their anti-tank weaponry is hitting at the same level as a regular guardsman is,
yeah,
and their stuff is way more expensive than a guardsman is.
yeah, yeah. It is. That's for sure. Also, just like Eldar, AdMech, anything you can give a -1 to hit, your opponent's automatically gonna want to not shoot at that,
To
and
maximize their own output.
yeah, because they're just not making point efficiency at that point.
Yeah,
You're paying for I hit on a 3 up and only hitting on a 4 up.
exactly. It's a huge deterrent to the shoot. As someone who mains their chaos with Death Guard, uh, I have a psychic power that lets me put this on any squad in my army, essentially, or any unit in my army.
Yeah.
you've been on the receiving end of this plenty of times, Luke, where I put that ability on like
Mortarion.
Mortarion,
Yeah.
and it's like, oh, a Primarch demon. He's already hard to put down, and now I just have a harder time of even hitting him.
Yeah.
I might as well not even bother.
Yeah. At that point, it's, I'm either going to focus all my fire into him to absolutely annihilate him, or I'm just not going to pay any attention to him at all, and I'm just going to work on the rest of the army.
Exactly.
So either you're going to
It's
make
really
them,
good for strategic deterrent.
yeah, you're either going to make them really ineffective at shooting at what you don't want to be shot, or just make them not shoot at it at all.
Yeah.
And that's
When it
huge.
comes down to smoke launchers and things that have a similar ability like that, uh, you're going to get the most use out of this kind of ability, where you put your Limin Russ into a position that when Strike and Shroud goes off, so it's got this -1 to be hit, you're really going to maximize your efficiency if it's in a position to keep wreaking like a havoc on the
Yeah.
enemies. Like if it gets within Punisher Gatling cannon range and it's grinding and advancing their troops that they need to hold objectives,
Hmm.
they need to get rid of it, but they also want to shoot the commander who doesn't have this on himself,
Yeah.
or shoot it to this other Lehman Russ, who's like, he's not as hard to be hit, but he's not doing as much damage as this other Lehman Russ.
Yeah.
And
Or
making your opponent choose or even split their fire is really great.
if you have a demolisher cannon and you just slammed your enemy with that, and they've just kind of woke up to this threat being 24
They-
inches away from them,
yeah,
they really want to kill it bad.
yeah,
So adding that deterrent is always a good idea.
yeah.
Uh,
It's almost, if you don't do it, there's a lot of times where you're going to kick yourself in the butt later.
yeah. Um, if we want to go ahead and go back up to the regimental orders, and
Yes.
after that, we'll go ahead and end this section.
Yeah, I think
Uh,
that'd be a good place.
and then the next section, we'll move on to HQs.
So do you want to start with the Catechin one?
Yeah, yeah,
Not the
let's go
Catechin,
ahead.
the Cadian one.
Yeah, we'll just go top to bottom.
Sure.
Uh, so we can just go every other. I'll start out with Cadian.
Hmm.
It's a tank order. It's called Pound Them to Dust. For the duration of the phase, you can reroll the dice when determining how many attacks the ordered model can make with turret weapons. So, demolishers, battle cannons,
Yeah.
eradicators. Um,
So it's pretty good, especially if you were if because as long as you're playing a Cadian army,
mhm.
uh, Cadian uh, command battle tanks or command tanks just have it's the fourth order for them, whereas the rest of Imperial Guard they only have the three base orders, whereas the Cadians get this extra one,
Yeah, and
which is really
also,
handy if you're playing Cadians.
Cadians have access to Knight Commander Pask, who issues 2 orders for Lehman Russes, so he can issue one to himself and then
Then
one to
one
someone
to
else.
someone else.
And having this is actually really nice, being able to, you know, avoid rolling
You're
that
essentially
one.
stealing the Catechin regimental doctrine
Yeah,
for your tanks, which is really good because this will go on top of the Cadian doctrine, whereas if you stand still, you get to reroll ones to hit.
yep. And I think this is honestly one of the best tank orders that are out there. It's overshadowed often by the Catechin just regimental doctrine.
Because you don't have to worry about putting it on them.
Yeah, but
Um,
you're actually re-rolling ones with Cadian, so it's not bad.
yeah, it's a bit funny because the Cadians and the Catechins for their tank orders kind of overlap because they end up getting the same results usually. Where, like, as someone who plays Catechins,
Hmm.
they already have the ability to reroll a dice when determining how many shots,
Yeah,
and I just give the tank reroll ones to hits.
yeah.
Whereas
The
Cadians
Cadians
come
just
with reroll
naturally
ones
have
to
it.
hit,
Yeah,
and then they now have an order to do rerolls of how many shots.
yeah. Um, so yeah, that one's pretty self-explanatory. Moving down to Catechin, burn them out.
The
You can
Catechin one,
re-roll. Yep. You can re-roll
nice.
the dice when determining the number of attacks the ordered unit can make with flamers, heavy flamers into the end of the phase. In addition, units targeted by models from the ordered unit do not gain bonuses to their saving throws for cover for this phase.
So this is huge because flamers no longer ignore cover unless
Yeah.
they have a specific kind of flamer, which I don't think there's. There might be one or two pieces in like Xenos armies where they get to ignore cover or something like that.
Yeah.
This is pretty huge because all of a sudden your regular infantry squad that's like 4 or 5 points more because there's a flamer guy in it.
Mm.
Uh, you can move them up, advance, and since a flamer automatically hits, you can just torch a squad that's in a building.
Yeah.
And this just makes it even better.
And then you're re-rolling the number of dice. So if you do roll that snake eye, you know, and manage to pull off a 6 after the re-roll, it feels pretty great. And
Yeah.
you're basically giving them AP -1 in some situations and AP -2 for heavy flamers.
Yeah, and by giving them an AP -1 or 2, what we mean is you're negating the cover from the
Yes.
bonuses from being in cover.
And on a basic infantry squad, you can take one flamer and one heavy flamer.
Yeah,
I don't know if I would, because it's kind of expensive on
it's
cheap
expensive,
guys.
but if you're playing an infantry heavy army, you're probably going to have infantry squads that have
A couple
uh,
flamers.
upgrades, and especially if you're playing catechins, you're probably going to have a few squads of
Yep.
veterans or something like that with flamers to take advantage of this one.
And veterans is where this really shines. I don't love using flamers on veterans because they already hit on 3s, but just being able to have a fireball of like 4 flamers is nice.
Yeah. Where this also is really great is on special weapon teams.
Mm-hmm.
Special weapon teams are 6-man squads. 3 of them have to have las guns. They come with las guns. You can't give them anything else.
Mm-hmm.
And the other 3 men in the squad just can have essentially any special weapon they want. And the
Mm-hmm.
way I generally will use them is give them 3 plasma guns or give them 3 melta-guns and put them in a Valkyrie to deep strike them essentially behind someone's tank and then just shell them with melta-guns, right?
Yeah.
But when I'm fighting like Tyranids or something like that, or if I'm fighting somebody that runs infantry heavy, I bring flamers and I make sure to keep a commanding officer around to give them this order because all of a sudden, because I usually bring them in squads of 2 to have 6 of the weapons. So that's 6 flamers
Yeah.
roasting into a squad with burn them out actives. Incredibly good.
And also, if you take a veteran squad, arm them with all shotguns instead of their las guns, you've made a super effective close combat squad.
Yeah, incredible at going if you're running like a really like tight table or a really tight building to building kind of combat.
Yeah. Or even
Flamers,
just piling out of a chimera.
yeah, catechin flamers is whenever you're dealing with enemies in cover. Catechin flamers with a guy around to give the order. They all of a sudden become incredibly good at clearing out buildings and cities.
One thing that you could do too, just kind of skipping ahead, is the command vehicle with a chimera, which
Hmm.
lets it issue orders, and then having the guys pile out of it with the flamers is a nice
Yeah,
combo here.
yeah,
Um,
it makes them really effective.
if you want to go ahead and read the next order down.
The Valhallan one.
Yep.
Valhallan one's pretty great. They're all usually pretty handy in their own ways. So the Valhallan one is fire on my command.
Mhm.
The ordered unit can shoot enemy units within 1 inch of friendly units until the end of the phase. But each time you roll a hit of a 1 for such an attack, you resolve the attack against a friendly unit within 1 inch of the target you were firing at instead. You may choose which friendly unit is hit. The order may not be issued to a unit within 1 inch. So what this does is it lets you do something that almost nobody else in the game can do off the top of my head, which is you get to shoot into melee.
Yep.
So where this really comes into handy is if you're running Valhallans, obviously to get this. Let's say you've got an infantry squad that's stuck in melee.
Mhm.
If you have the Laurels of Command and you put this on whoever's issuing the order, you put fire on my command on the squad that's going to shoot into melee, and then you also put take aim onto it so they're rerolling ones if you get that magical 4-up for Laurels of Command.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, you are essentially not shooting any of your allies, and you're just gunning down whoever's in melee.
Also, if you have flamers near, like a
Yeah.
veteran squad with flamers, they automatically hit. So they can just stand
Yeah.
8 inches
You
outside
can-
of the combat and just shoot
Yeah.
flamers into it and not touch any of your own men.
Yeah, it's a crazy thought, but it's incredibly true, and it works so well.
You know, and it's funny because the flamers are what you would think would do the most damage to your own men, but whatever.
Nope, of course not.
They done laid down. Okay.
Exactly. They just laid down, and the flames went right over their heads. We swear
Yeah.
that's how it was.
The enemies didn't notice why they were laying down.
The enemies in the middle of melee didn't notice why they were just laying on the ground
Yeah.
in ample teeth-kicking distance.
But yeah, it's a
Um,
good way to use it if you pump heavy flamers and flamers into your enemies that are locked in combat.
It
And you
is-
can stand up and fix bayonets. You're gonna do
Yes.
some damage.
So with these kind of orders all combined and being able to make your line kind of support itself, you can make it so guardsmen are notorious for just charge them, it's fine, they're not that great in melee anyways.
Yeah.
If you're smart about it and you use these kind of orders, you're able to detrimentally make sure that no one wants to charge you because they charge this 10-man squad of infantry. They don't kill all of them, they don't run away. Oh well, whatever, right? Your turn rolls around and you don't even bother leaving melee. You just drill them down with flamers and heavy flamers and other things like that. You fix bayonets and you stab them to death.
Yep.
And then that squad still gets used for shooting in the same phase.
Yep. And also, you get to decide which one of your models are picked out if you happen to kill any of your own men.
Yeah.
So if you
That's
do have a special weapons squad that got tied up, take one of the las guns out instead of
Yeah.
your plasma or whatever.
Instead of whatever you have, right?
Yeah. Instead of
Um,
whatever is more expensive.
Very true. The next one, for the Vestroyans, also really good for being defensive.
Yeah.
It's literally called Repel the Enemy. Until the end of the phase, the ordered unit can fire any of its weapons while within 1 inch of the enemy, regardless of the weapon's type. If they do so, they must target the enemy units within 1 inch, even if friendly units are within 1 inch of these units. So this one lets you fire while you're in melee.
Yeah. Which, in certain scenarios, could be better. I honestly like the Vestroyan or the Valhallan order a little bit better, because if you do have a gun line, that's probably 2 or 3 squads shooting in as opposed to just the one squad. But
Yeah.
this is still very useful.
Mhm.
You know, if you happen to have flamers, like we talked about before, in the squad that's in
Yeah.
combat.
Now it's not only does that flamer or whatever have you in there get to shoot, so does everybody else. And guess what?
Yeah.
If you're within an inch, you're within rapid fire range.
Yeah. So if, you
So-
know, Laurels of Command, talked about it a million times, but it's important with these orders. If you get first rank fire, second rank fire off, you know.
As well as repel the enemy.
Yeah. Your
It-
day's
it-
just bad.
Let's assume this 5-man squad of tactical marines has charged my 10-man squad of Vestroyans.
Yeah.
I've got Laurels of Command nearby, and they've whiffed all their swings, so all 10 men are alive.
Yeah.
First rank fire and repel the enemy both go off on the squad because of Laurels of Command.
Hmm.
All of a sudden, these 5 tactical marines
Are in a world of pain.
in the shooting phase are getting shot to death in melee from 40 shots.
Yeah.
And
And that's assuming that there's no flamers in, which if I was playing Vestroyans, there's gonna be flamers.
there's going to be flamers in the gun line if I played Vestroyans.
Mm-hmm.
But what's incredibly handy to remember with this is it doesn't. There's no negative to your shooting.
Yeah.
If you have veterans in melee and you use this on them,
Mm-hmm.
let's say you get the first rank fire off and on them and things like that, they're grinding apart whatever they're in melee with as long as they shoot them.
Yeah.
They're just gone. You're just grinding away whatever it is with a massive amounts of fire.
I personally like to run plasma in my vet squads. So if you
Yep.
get in combat with a Vestroyan veteran squad with plasma in it, with Space Marine equivalents, and now they're firing plasma guns at BS3 into you, you're gonna feel it.
You're looking at just picking up Marines off the table
Yeah, which is never a good feeling because they're expensive as hell.
because they're way more expensive than these chuckle fucks with fancy hats.
Yeah. And especially being an AdMech player, I have a soft spot for them, considering that they're literally technocrats.
Yeah, they're quite literally that's how their societies run.
I'll take it.
Uh,
Moving on to Armageddon.
Armageddon.
Steel Legion, here we go. Mount up. Until the end of the phase, the ordered unit can shoot immediately,
And then immediately.
shoot and then immediately embark on a friendly Armageddon transport vehicle. As long as the models are within 3 inches of the vehicle, this order may not be issued to a unit which disembarked in the preceding movement phase. That's insanely good.
So it's really good, but it does specify that it's not the same squad that just jumped out of it.
Yeah, but
Um,
you could do the rotating door effect where one squad's always
yes,
out and one squad's hopping in. Um,
the unit which disembarked in preceding. Okay, I see
yeah,
what you're saying though.
but
But still, you as long as there's a squad that's following around, you could just do
so
it to them.
does dis? Hang on, I have the core rulebook here, and I'm just going over to the transport. Being an AdMech player, I know nothing about that.
Ho ho!
Yeah,
You
it's
make them,
great.
but you can't drive them.
Yeah,
Wait.
I always love rules writing. It's wonderful.
The Inquisitors are allowed to get in anybody's vehicle. What about the guys who made them?
I don't think
No,
so.
no, I don't think so.
Okay, page
We can't trust
183.
them.
It's funny too because the AdMech routinely uses Lehman Russes and Rhinos in lore.
Yeah.
Um, let's see here. Transports. Transport capacity. If all units in their move within 3 inches of a friendly transport, they can embark on it, remove it from the battlefield. They're now embarked. Embarked units cannot do anything. Transports destroyed. Okay, yep, so any unit that begins its movement phase embarked.
You disembark at the start.
Right, okay. So you can get out, move, shoot that turn, and the next turn,
Immediately get
uh,
inside.
well, you'll fire with this order and then get
Yeah.
inside. So that's where the power from it's actually going to come.
Yeah.
That's nice. So,
It's really good for popping them out, taking shots with plasma guns or something like that with a veteran squad,
mhm,
losing a men or two to return fire,
yep.
or however many, and then just jumping the guys back inside the vehicle.
And this is nice too because it is Steel Legion. Their whole army's about mechanized infantry, so you're going to have transports.
Yeah, there's a great chance you've got transports around.
Yep. Alright. Tailoring. It's a tank order too.
Hmm.
Get around behind them. Ordered unit can move up to 6 inches in this phase, either before or after it shoots, as if it were the movement phase. Does not affect how far their vehicle is purposed for determining if it's determining for grinding advance. So here's a free 6-inch movement whenever you want in the shooting phase.
So the Talaran one, this tank order is probably one of my favorites, I think.
Yeah.
More so than the Cadians.
Yeah.
Because if you're Talaran
Mhm.
and during your movement phase you move out like 5 or 6 inches for the grinding advance, right? Around a
Yeah.
corner of like this, let's imagine it's just a pure brick wall. You can't see through it, they can't see through you. You move up to shoot,
Right.
and then you use this order, and after you're done shooting, because you can choose to do it after or before, you choose after, then you
Mhm.
just go right back behind the wall, and the enemy can't return fire on their turn.
Yeah. This reminds me of the old
The old battle
Eldar
suit for
battle
Tau,
focus. Yeah.
battle suits, and old battle focus.
Yeah. Um,
It's just
God, that was
annoying shooting
annoying.
to deal with.
Yeah, it's a pain in the ass to deal with, especially if your tank's like in your own deployment zone. It's just slipping behind a building that no one else will have line of sight to besides like deep strikers.
Another
That's
super
really good.
handy thing for this is, like I said, as someone who owns a shadow sword, you
Mhm.
can just slip it behind the shadow sword, and all of a sudden it's a pain. And what it's really good for is it's gonna be really handy for if you do decide to turtle up and make a gun line, And there's like the ability for the enemy to deep strike or infiltrate in to your deployment zone to attack the shadow sword or try to throw satchel charges at it, whatever it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
If they do this and you're just keeping a Leman Russ around for the pure purpose of playing hide and go seek behind a shadow sword with them,
Yeah.
all of a sudden they deep strike and now they have to deal with
A
a Leman
Lehman
Russ that's
Russ
sitting there.
and a Shadow Sword.
It's really good because it kind of promotes that play of turtling your Lehman Russ or two kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing. And when you keep something turtling, people usually like to deep strike near it because, like, hey, I'll get rid of it this way because I have a deep strike Terminator squad or something like that.
Yeah.
That might be cool and all, but now all of a sudden you're dealing with a Lehman Russ and the other Lehman Russ that's ordering it.
Yeah.
It just becomes like maybe I bit off more than I can chew.
And it also plays to the mobility for Tayloran. Their
Yeah.
stratagem allows them to do some stuff like this too, but we can talk about that later.
Yeah.
Um,
You should
but
probably read this Tempestus one that's next.
yeah. Elimination Protocol Sanctioned. You can reroll failed wounds to the ordered unit when attacking enemy vehicles or monsters in this phase. This is
Crazy
really
big.
big for Tempestus, especially with their battlefield role. They're deep striking. All of them have deep strike except like the Torax Prime. Um, so if you're bringing down a 10-man Tempestus squad, you throw this order on it, and let's say even they just have hotshot las guns, so they're going to be wounding vehicles and monsters on sixes. You're, re-rolling that, getting more wounds, and even though it's just a hotshot las gun, it's AP -2, so you're going to be causing wounds on big stuff.
Yeah.
And keep in mind if you have Laurels of Command on your Tempestor Prime.
Get those extra orders.
Yeah, so if you have first rank fire, second rank fire, it affects hotshot las guns.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to be able to do some damage. Personally, I like lots of plasma in my Tempestus squads
Yeah.
because you're within rapid fire range when you come down.
Mm-hmm.
Throw that overcharge on, get the re-rolling ones order,
Take
and
aim.
this, yeah. And you can really mess someone's day up.
Oh yeah.
Quick 4 wounds on something with one gun.
Mm-hmm. It's a really handy ability, especially because of how they're generally used or generally supposed to be used, which is with deep striking squads into support.
Yeah. And when you're deep striking, you want to take care of bigger vehicles or monsters. So
Yeah,
this is a really nice way to do it.
if you've got the ability to, you don't want to usually just harass the enemy. You want to make sure that something's gone
Yeah.
when you deep strike, which is this really helps you with it because if like you said, if you're shooting at a vehicle or a bigger monster that's T6 or above,
Hmm.
you're wounding on sixes, but having this ability
Yeah.
makes you wound on sixes, but you just get to reroll everything essentially. And that's
So
crazy useful.
this is one reason why I will always preach the gospel of the hotshot volley gun. It's a 7-point upgrade
Yeah,
to a guy, and it's strength 4 instead of strength 3, which
yeah,
is huge because it means that you're wounding T7, which is most tanks, most like Tyranid monsters on
yeah,
5s, and if you can get this order off, now you're re-rolling. So
yeah.
you're getting twice as many shots as just a hotshot las gun, and you're not paying the points of a plasma gun.
That's right.
Also, you don't need first rank fire, second rank fire to get 4 shots off from it.
Yeah, no, it's a bunch of shots. That's the whole point of the gun.
Yeah, and you can throw 4 of them in a 10-man squad, so you're gonna actually do some damage with it.
Just to finish off with the Militarum Tempestus
Yeah.
order, I've only really ever used it once because I don't actually own any Tempestus models. But I was playing a game and borrowed some Maluks to test them out.
Mhm.
I deep strike them in within rapid fire range,
Yeah.
and I'm within range to just give them a good amount of DACA. And I
Yeah.
put this on them, and I had 2 volley guns in this 10-man squad. Just even with that, even without getting first rank fire off or anything else like that,
Yeah.
I only got this off on them before remembering that it's only on monsters. And I was
Yeah.
like, wait a second, before I do shooting, I need to make sure.
Yeah.
And I made sure, and I was like, well, whatever, I already said it went off, so sorry,
Yeah.
I already did everything, so I went ahead with it. So even without this on, if you want to use Tempestus, even just shooting normal guys with volley guns in your rapid fire range,
Oh yeah.
with volley guns and hotshot las guns, even just two volley guns in a squad,
Life's
absolutely
pain.
removes that problem infantry unit. Like sniper squads, you can just get rid of them.
Well, the thing that's interesting about this edition is I'm finding that AP is like exuberantly important. Um,
AP is king.
Even if you're, strength
Strength
2,
3.
yeah, or strength 3, and you're wounding on 6s, anything that you do wound, it's gonna feel the damage come through.
Yeah.
Um, just because even if it's at a 3-up save, you're now to a 5-up. You've
Yeah.
drastically reduced its saving ability.
Yeah. They're so effective against Space Marines and Space Marine equivalents because of that factor.
Yeah, and you gotta keep in mind that most vehicles are rocking a 3-up right now,
Yeah.
so you're taking them to a 5-up armor save.
Yeah. Like if you're fighting other guardsmen play and they volley gun your Lehman Russ and wounds go through, good
You
luck
will
making your
feel it.
5-up save
Yeah,
because it's all of a sudden become more detrimental.
yeah.
You've lost like 3 or 4 wounds to this infantry grinder because it's got a good AP.
Yeah, and that's the nice part is that they're versatile, and then as well as being able to act like a veteran squad where you're hitting on 3s and you can put a
Hmm.
bunch of plasma guns or whatever you want in them.
Yeah. So the Militarum Tempestus, even without their order,
Yeah,
they're still, I would say, generally worth it.
I think that their order is decent, but if you don't have laurels of command, I'm always issuing first rank fire,
First rank
second rank
fire, second
fire.
rank fire.
Yeah,
Yeah. Or maybe take aim.
yeah.
It just depends.
If you have like 4 plasma guns in the squad, then maybe because you
Probably
don't want
two
to lose
take
that.
aim. But the moving on to the last regiment that's supported by GW, because there are a few other regiments that Forge World supports, and they've got their own armies and they have their own orders and things like that.
And that can be
But
found in imperial armor forces of the Astra Militarum, I think.
I believe it's called that. Yeah,
Okay.
it's a bit goofy on the naming.
Yeah.
Uh, the last regiment we're talking about here is Mordians, and their order really good actually.
Mm.
So their order is called Form Firing Squad. Uh, yeah, until the end of the phase, the ordered unit can target character or keyword characters with their rapid fire weapons, even if they're not the closest unit. So
That's
this is huge.
insanely good.
So all of a sudden, that pesky Dark Apostle that's behind 80 cultists, you're now just shooting las guns into.
Well, keep in mind, this is rapid fire weapons, so
That's true.
plasma
So you
guns.
could be shooting plasma guns into the enemy, like Apostle or like Chaplain or whatever have you that you want to get rid of.
So, where I can see this being used a lot is
Shooting
veteran
Earlman
squads. Yeah. I don't need to bring snipers because my army is snipers.
is, if I need to, the army becomes a sniper.
Yeah. And if I'm bringing vet squads with 4 plasma guns, and then with Mordians, they're not going to break morale because of their special rules. Um, I can be 24 inches away from, your Dark Apostle or your Chaos Champion when
Yeah,
you're charging my front line. Issue this, and hey, look at all your buffs are gone because I've just emptied plasma guns into you.
yeah. It's incredibly good. It reduces the need for bringing ratlings or veterans with sniper rifles or things like that. Um, just because of the fact that pretty much any of your infantry squads, anything that has the keyword infantry
Hmm.
as renegade or as a regular guardsman, or as Mordians, I suppose I should say,
Yeah.
you now have the ability to target characters with this order, and that's. It sounds like it's not super big compared to some of the other ones right off the bat, but when you start thinking about it and think about the fact of like to give you a prime example, Chaos Space Marines, they don't have snipers. They literally don't have sniper weapons. They don't have
Hmm.
sniper teams in their entire army. So being able to just absolutely do this with any of your squads, essentially, it makes it a really huge deal.
Well, characters, just in general, this edition are huge. If you're not
Yeah.
bringing, I'd say like at least 3 characters in army to give buffs, you're not
Yeah.
gonna do well. Um,
Yeah.
Especially
And,
with the new codexes coming out, like Dark Angels just dropped, Blood Angels just dropped, things like Azrael.
yeah, named characters especially are things you want to put down because of the effects they give.
Yeah. Um,
To give you a prime example, for Chaos, Typhus is often foot-slogged, surrounded by a tide of zombies or
yeah.
poxwalkers, because he buffs their toughness and their strength by 1. It makes them strength and toughness 4.
Yeah.
That's huge. Get rid of them.
Yeah. Or lieutenants for Space Marines, letting them reroll ones to wound. Captains, letting them reroll ones to hit.
Yeah, it immediately stops that Hellblaster squad from overcharging every single turn.
Yeah. Cryptex, letting them
Decks are
reroll.
huge if you're being mean enough to beat up on the local Necron player before his codex drops.
Yeah.
If you really
Um,
just want to rub the salt in his wound, just shoot out the Overlord so he doesn't get any of his cool bonuses.
yeah. Um, if you're
It's
playing
absolutely
AdMech,
devastating.
killing their tech priest are pretty freaking important because
Yeah,
now you can actually start to hurt them without them just going, "Oh, I'm gonna repair the 3 wounds you did."
or shooting things like Brood Lords and things like that, and from the Tyranids, like some of their characters that like buff Gene Stealers.
Oh God, yeah.
Just get
Um,
rid of it, please. Please no.
or even more offensive things like psychers. If you
Yeah,
have frickin' Farseer running up, he's throwing out buffs everywhere like Fortune, throwing that on
yeah.
different units, giving them 5 up, feel no pains, and then
Or
he
even if
could
you're
be
just getting
smiting
smited
you.
to death.
Yeah. You don't want to be constantly getting smited. Um,
It's a bad time unless you're the Death Guard.
yeah. Unless you have a feel no pain, and even then sometimes the
Even then, it's
smite
usually
spam
still not
hurts.
that great.
Yeah. Also, it just gives you flexibility, like Grey Knight um, baby carriages. I don't think that the character ones can be targeted. Um,
No, I believe they might be at 10 wounds. Don't quote me on this. We don't play that many Grey Knights because they're kind of garbage.
yeah, Grey Knights are pretty trash this edition, even with their codex.
It's not that we don't play enemy people who own Grey Knights because their army's garbage.
No,
There's
Grey
not many
Knights
people
this
who
edition
play
just
Grey
aren't
Knights
good.
because their army's garbage.
Yeah. Same kind of deal with Necrons right now. Anything that doesn't have a codex, like you're not gonna get on a podcast and hear someone, "Oh my God, Battle Sisters are the new meta" or anything.
I mean, I won't lie, Sisters of Battle are good,
Yeah,
but they are just an index.
yeah, they're
You
they're an
can't build lists around
index.
stratagems or orders or regimental tactics like you can with Guard or pretty much anything else, really.
Yeah,
Pretty much
which
every army that has a codex that's not like Dark Angels or Death Guard or, like specific
mm,
chapters or legions, they have options. Like the regular Space Marines, you can run, like, I want to run Iron Hands or I want to run Ultramarines and
hmm
things like that.
which is nice because you don't know exactly what's coming to the table. You know, you go to a tournament, you get your roster, you see you're fighting a Space Marine player. Well, that could mean one of 1,000 things. Maybe they're
Yeah,
Raven Guard and they're gonna gunline me, or they're Black Templars and they're gonna be re-rolling that failed charge roll.
yeah.
Um, so it's a nice variability.
Which
Um,
almost is
yeah,
another reason because um, a lot of armies in 8th edition, you're going to be building around characters or named characters
yeah,
for the sake of army buffs. And you
yeah.
want to keep them close to the guys that are getting buffed because they've got little 6-inch bubbles of buff range.
Um, I'm primarily
So, like a
AdMech, so
prime
like
example is
Call.
this: if I was ballsy enough to attack the Call Fortress within 24 inches, which is a lot of rapid fire weapon range.
Yeah,
Let's say that like 2 Mordian special weapon teams are within 24 inches and they both have plasma.
yeah, yeah. I'm
That's
gonna feel it.
that's 12 plasma gunshots. Even if I don't overcharge because I shrug and I don't need to with 12 plasma gunshots.
You
I
probably,
mean, if I
well, with Call, you might need to.
with Call, you'll probably need to, but like any other character, you're
Mm.
literally just removing them off the map.
Yeah. Um, just a generally good thing. And also, you could throw these boys in a Chimera or a Valkyrie.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're just dropping, boatloads of plasma on someone's head, they're gonna feel it really quick.
Yeah. Regardless of if you're shooting characters with the Mordian order or not, they're
Yeah,
still just gonna feel it no matter when you bring plasma.
yeah. And that's really one of the huge benefits of plasma this edition. It's man portable. It's pretty cheap. Um, you're hitting it strength 8 and doing 2 damage, and then ignoring or getting most armor to a 6 up. It's
Well, it's
pretty great.
strength 8 if you overcharge,
Yeah,
but there's a lot of armies, like I said, with characters where you bring a character to give you rerolls of ones, like a lot of power armor armies,
yeah,
like Marines and Chaos Space Marines, Lords and Chapter Masters and things like that. They give you reroll ones to hit.
yeah.
So, hey, I'm gonna have my plasma gunners overcharge every turn because there's way less of a chance of me killing the guy with the plasma gun.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden, that Lord or whatever have you that's giving that bonus just gets gunned down by a hail of lasgun, a hail of plasma, just whatever you want. That's rapid fire, basically.
Yeah. And then,
All of a sudden, that's a huge deal.
well, and also, how many times have you had, like a demon prince, like 18 inches away from your front line, but you also have a bunch of Chaos Space Marines or some other, like a
Yeah,
Rhino in front?
that's a
Well,
prime example because as someone who mains chaos, I
mhm.
suppose, demon princes of Chaos Space Marines only have 8 wounds, so you
Yeah.
can't target them until they're in your lines, and that's when they're the most of the problem.
Yeah. So just being able to say, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and at the very least tack some wounds on him, that's
Yeah.
great. So we're approaching the hour 30 minute, so I think we're going to go ahead and end it here. So guys, remember to like, comment, and subscribe if you've enjoyed it, and we will see you in the next part.